Good evening. My name is Beta Rock, and together we can change the world. Pulling up my notes here. You have an inalienable right as part of participating with Beta Rock Church. Right now, we got nobody. Okay. Sometime that'll change. You have an inalienable right that if you participate in Beta Rock Church, whether it's 32 million or zero, to ask yourself, have I been heard? Have you been heard? That's my question. You saying it, of course, to yourself is have I been heard? The mechanism now is email. One of the ways, Bader at betarock.com. Have you been heard? What are the 8 things? Abasement. 3 things. Abased life. That's primary. Church discipline, right on top of that. Matthew 18, church discipline. Google the guy, Mark Dever, church discipline. This is all base. When you can't even go to church and do what the Bible says, this is right there and will stay there. And then the abounding side, there's a good therapy article on the internet, The 8 Dimensions of Wellness. Emotional, spiritual, intellectual, physical, environmental, financial, occupational, and social. Those 8 categories. So we could talk about that. But the truth is, to be healthy, we got to understand based Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Certainly, church today can be happy, if they would, to talk about all those things. They sell, okay? But they're secondary. Just comes to mind of things to talk about. Bader at betarock.com. Got to start somewhere. Have you been heard? Have you been heard? I believe that people have burdens, okay? Burdens. This is a text. This is a text. This is a biblical text. John 3:8. The wind blows wherever it pleases. You hear its sound, but you cannot tell where it comes from or where it is going. So it is with everyone born of the Spirit. This, then, is my prayer. Lord, may I be your wind here now. In Jesus' name, amen. And then we're eventually going to close. Are you ready to take a step of lordship, of full surrender? That is primary to Beta Rock Church. I have said this. What are we up to now? Number 14 sermons. Can I count this as a sermon? I guess so. I mean, that seems a little more dignified. Do we have people that really pay attention? Whatever. I mean, it's a sermon in spirit. 14 of these. And I plan to be doing these for 40 years. That's a lot of preaching. But these things that I just went through, I plan to do for 40 years, God willing. Are you ready to take the step of lordship and a full surrender? And here tonight, we're talking about a vow of chastity. And I've studied that a bit during the day, and it hasn't yielded, I don't know, material so much. I mean, there's been things and I've thought this, that, or the other, but the truth is, when I was getting my shower, whatever happened today, I ended up, because heaven was the topic of this morning, but Billy, and I had heard this before, but I say it because it was what was most meaningful for me in my kind of devotional attitude. I'm laughing because when I look down my downloaded playlist, it has a decision to go celibate by this, what's it called? The Real Daytime, like a daytime talk show with these 3 women. I Googled along the way celibacy. Like I Google things like celibacy Bible. Okay, that yields a particular search result, right? But celibacy brought this up. And they were talking, so that meant to them 90 days. Now, what I'm talking about is for good. Okay. Sensitive, I guess. And when I talk in truth, who knows what comes out of me? That's why I like this prayer, wherever the wind blows. But as I kind of reflect and hear now, you're getting the accumulation of a day's worth of thinking into 34 an hour. Most of these have been about an hour. I don't know if this one will go an hour. I don't know if there's enough material here. But then I like it to be what it is. Here's after this has been mulling around in my spirit, meditating. What's here? And it feels a little awkward because when you say these kind of things and when real life intersects, I mean, how I was thinking about this in the shower. How honest is good, and how honest can I be? I mean, I want to be honest and I want to tell you the truth. This area I'm just trying to say however, and we'll just go with it. But it feels, and when mainly another thing is when I think about people that might watch it and criticize, like they'll just think, no, he's trying to get women somehow twisted around, even in this celibacy, And that's the thing about truth. Okay. The truth comes out. I mean, even by biblical command, a biblical proclamation, like what is hidden in the rooms is eventually going to be proclaimed from the rooftops. Okay. And just in real world examples or whatever, I think people are able to think into that. So when I talk into this, as I've been thinking about this, I mainly think, well, people will listen to me say something like this and they'll think this is a reaction to personal circumstances or really he's not trustworthy or whatever. I'm just telling you. I had a conversation like this with somebody yesterday about finding out the truth. And I did make an assumption. The person responded and said, that makes sense why you think that, but that's not it. And then, anyway, but how true can it be? When I say for me, anyway, in terms of celibacy, here should we? I think we should. What do you say? I talked to a client. He's a man, friend. We can't think with our lower head and our upper head. Okay, these are the conversations. Even when I was googling a picture, I'll just say, but it was like there was like these two priests, and the one maybe is a monk, but the one monk had a blindfold over his eyes, and then the other monk didn't. Okay, but he was saying, "How's that vow of chastity going?" Because the parishioners were these pretty women. It was a cartoon, and I thought about putting it, and I didn't because it was making light of a thing that, even though that's true, like that's true to life. Okay, this daytime talk show people, were they telling a particular kind of truth? Yeah, yeah. I mean, some of the things, it's like when you're a Catholic or whatever and never had sex, these words that come out. These people all did on the daytime talk show, but then that let them talk into arenas. And I'm like, that's true. What you're saying there, that's true. That doesn't make it right. Okay. The way, the truth, and the life that Jesus talks about. Just playing with the idea. But I want Beta Rock to be telling you the truth in all areas. And this one is a little, because really, what do I say here? But when I listened to basically all the resources of this vow of chastity were Catholic, I think. I did Google a couple other ones that came up just from putting the word chastity without Bible, and then I was running, and I picked this one guy that looked nice. Okay, like it was, what was it called, Josh Talk or something, like TED Talks. He made Joshua Talks. But anyway, I didn't expect it. And then I'm running, and he was gay. I'm like, oh, this is not really what I wanted to get, but I listened to it, and it made sense too. Sensuality, lust. Okay. When the Catholic, I'm telling you, this is how it's coming out. When I listened to the Catholic people, they had a couple nuns that the one nun was pictured on the front screen, and I even saw that when I was going to pick the screenshot to share for the topic, and I'm like, I'm not picking that because that nun is not pretty. I mean, it's one thing to, I mean, I'm just right. It's one thing to make a vow of chastity and be ugly, you know. I remember a high school conversation about that whole actual topic. Like, and there's a truth to this, I think. And so, right, like when I say this, people like I think I was going to say who that was, but somebody one time said to me after I had preached one time, and it was like an American Idol response. Like she didn't come in listening, thinking about it. She came at it from like, if this was an American Idol, what happened? And I'm like, well, that's interesting. Okay. So how I look, you see, okay, how that makes me feel a little awkward. Okay. When I listened to Billy Graham, so that's what's second here and where this whole thing kind of got going. Whatever was happening, let the spirit move. Heaven, a new message from Billy Graham. The 771,000 views, which, I guess that's a lot, but in that perspective, okay, but I'd seen this before. And I think I had seen this before. Heaven, again, is why it came up. But I want to keep listening to this because I've said, like, I really, believe beat America's Next Pastor, and this is a model of this, but he's been doing it a lot longer than me. And I acknowledge when I listen to him, I'm like, he's not only just telling the truth because I can repeat his words, right? But then it's not my truth or it's not true from my experience. Because when he says it, I believe it's true from his heart and his experience. So it lines up and I hear it just right. And it's moving to me. I want to keep listening. I'm glad I came across it. Again, I'm going to really study it, try to take it in a lot. But when I listen to a message like that, where it's base, pure God, and then I think about pretty women that I interact with. Limited. Is there shame to that? That's where I was like, however this comes out, I'm going to be straight though, because, and I can, this is where really for me, lust and self-esteem and however, this is what's coming out. But what I really ultimately found a freedom in and this is central, not necessarily only, but there's ironies and all things involved with this. But sexual addiction that I experienced, lust, was fueled by low self-esteem. Okay. So I could think that a pretty woman that doesn't talk to me, okay, so having this idea of avowed chastity with all humility and truth, okay, it's not in the spirit of a middle finger towards women. That was what my one client was saying about this one friend of his that had been hurt and different things. And so it made him take a vow of chastity in the sense of just being like, F you. That's not it. But when I hear Billy Graham preach, I'm like, you know what? This message here doesn't depend on anything. This is pure Jesus talking. So whether you're ugly or beautiful, the base Jesus message is the same and good. Okay. So the people, and that's definitely part of this. And so that's what I hope to communicate. I hope that's what can be heard, not the other drama that you might assume why I'm saying this. There are other factors in this to me and to the situation and to the preaching. Okay. But at the end of the day, okay, it still comes down to what I'm saying. Is Jesus the Lord of your life? I ran 2 times today. I run 2 times pretty much every day. Not now during Monday through Thursday when I work, but my first run, or how did I forget? Maybe it was a different time on the second run. What was I thinking? I lost my train of thought. I guess we'll have to move on. Uh, I don't want to waste the time because I don't think it's going to come back to me. Sometimes it's like, oh, it does, but it was good what I had to think and say. What has come to mind now is to pick up another word this film was going. So with sexual addiction, it's like but to put that aside, and the Catholic people that were talking definitely spoke into this, and this has been my experience, that flushing out lustful thoughts or sexual thoughts, I mean, that can be different, I guess. But it allows me then to be able to relate to women and men, anything. It cleans the deck. Okay. Like when I think about things that were in my head over life and people, there could be studies done that men think about sex like every 30 seconds or something like that. Well, that's one of the things that the vow of chastity was freeing up in my head. Okay. Like it wasn't true anymore when I don't have it in there at all, when it's not a path to try. I can't, like, it was something you might say, this isn't something you can balance. Okay. But I am testifying to the fact that when it gets flushed out, it doesn't, I'm not, okay. And it makes me feel comfortable talking to these pretty women and even the one like, this other people that aren't pretty. It works both ways. Okay. But all to the purity of what's good from the Bible. And that's what the pastors or the priests were talking about. This is important. I mean, the Bible, any topic. I mean, Paul says, don't do this. And maybe we'll go through some scriptures. We will. There'll be time for this. What do I do with my glasses? I made notes. 9. Shepherding. These things in my head. Clear teaching behind this may be less compelling than owning the reality of present circumstances. I'm saying that shepherding in today's world, and maybe this has been because, I mean, like I said earlier today, Proverbs 31 starts with the mom telling the son to be careful. Or, I mean, let's take a minute, I guess, because I want to say it since I brought it up, to say exactly what the caution. I mean, how she would listen, my son, listen, son of my womb, listen, my son, the answer to my prayers. Do not spend your strength on women. Okay. So I want to say this is something shepherded for today, but not really. I mean, there's such trouble with. Paul says it's better not to get married, but at the same time, he said you're not sinning if you can't control yourself. But in the midst of this, that prompts me down to some of this. Like some of this gets in my head. I use this. I've said it, but I'll say it again. Like what I've kind of come to see is the devil talk. It's like devil talk, the father of lies. Here's one as an example. Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. I remember studying it in like 7th grade psychology. 7th or 8th grade was it psychology in high school. And sex was a need according to Maslow. And even the Bible talks about that a wife's body's not her own. And, the Bible doesn't do it like I might preach it. Okay. And it kind of just gets all squishy into this. So I can't preach. Okay, this is why I can't preach that a vow of celibacy pervasively is a biblical command. It's not. That's what I was kind of not necessarily. I thought maybe I would find more. But this is a high. What did the one guy say? This one, I don't think he was even Catholic, but he said it so well that I rewound it and I wrote it down. What did he say here? Let me find this. It was super good. I gotta find it. Scriptures, a giftedness, made that way eunuch. These are my words. We'll see what we come across in the allotted time. But here's his words. It's like a straitjacket. He's not saying this is good. I mean, if it's a gift and it's a calling or however this might be, the Bible has a high view of celibacy. Okay, that's good. But he said it's not an order given by Christ or the Bible. He said the church decided where boundaries were, where the Bible did not put boundaries, like with the Catholic Church. And I think that's what came to mind, because like the Catholic and the priests and all this stuff about the trials with this, molesting boys. I mean, that's kind of what he was kind of getting at. And but it doesn't mean, but that's a view from the sense of somebody that's not married, unmarried, 15-year-old kid, okay, or something, however this, pervasively. But in terms, this is where the shepherding idea comes in, like to present circumstances. And I know for myself, there's a certain level of things that just are simply not logical. Like I could be on daytime talk show and give my views, and all the ladies would cheer and have an idea that wasn't for celibacy. I mean, they would cheer for celibacy too. I mean, I think they would. I mean, they might, but they'll be like, "That's up to you," and that's an Americanized, worldly view. But to what is good according to the Bible, coming into marriage unmarried is one thing with all sorts of caution. I'll say that much. Better, says Paul, to be unmarried. That's another one of these devil words. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, back to that thought. It's not a need. I've experienced that. Now food, So for Maslow to put it in there, so I was putting Maslow on a God terrain in this thinking. One of the books that I read, or that was the first counseled book when I, this, you might say, confessed or really got caught with lustful sin things. Every Man's Battle, a Christian book. I have one friend that I criticized on here at least once. He was so upset by this book because it was saying that, wives should give in to the men's urges, and he just couldn't make sense of this. And then he brought up, oh, by the way, the author of that book is divorced. And I think that's interesting. I mean, we just have a sick, really. I mean, but why do I not like 99% of churches? I mean, this is another example here where this is devil talk. I mean, when the devil gets into stuff, he's tricky, okay? And he lies. So I'm just saying that these thoughts stayed with me, and they gave a certain level of allowance where it was okay to have lust. And I reacted accordingly, even to thinking like nobody's perfect. Okay. But at the end of the day, sin was present and I thought I could manage it. That's different. I mean, you could go into a marriage pure as it could be, violating, but this is all good thinking that doesn't happen in America by and large. Important. I mean, when you think about Martin Luther that started the Reformation, one of the commentaries or something that I watched on YouTube was saying that the people of the day were just saying all he came up with the Reformation, but at the end of the day, he was motivated just because he wanted to be married. I mean, if he's dead, I can't ask him or whatever. He could maybe do more research. Maybe that could be if I'm ever a doctor or something, first of all, I got to get a master's degree. What would I study? I don't know. But I mean, how do you know that? But that was one of the things that said, and that made a lot of sense to me. A reformation over the vain topic of just wanting to be married? I don't know. But I want then to shepherd into this, to tell you what is absolutely the truth. There are some absolute truths. One, when a couple gets married, I mean, the vow of chastity just fits into so many people, okay? Because of really these pretty women that I'm talking to, not that I mean, it's just, I don't know where it's going to go, but I have to put myself out there. That's why America's pastor, what would I preach? That's why when the Billy Graham things come, it's like, does this message here of gospel truth apply to pretty people? Yes. I mean, that's of course the truth. That it inspires me and changes my life and makes me think these ways. Why should I assume that because they're pretty, they won't want to do this? Maybe what they need is a pastor like me to tell them the truth here, open their eyes and say, okay, well if it works for me, why can't it work for them? And maybe I'm not pretty as them. Okay. I don't buy that. You hear, but you got to understand. I think I'm glad how that came out because look, somehow here, I just want to tell the truth. God breathed truth. And I said half a minute ago anyway, that some things are absolutely true. When you get married and you say, till death do us part. So even whatever you could try to think from some kind of Christian understanding about the Bible says with sexual immorality and what that means, and I'll have to study this more. But even if it is, that's some kind of allowance, What then do you do ethically with the idea that you didn't put that in the vows to begin with? And you see, that's just where this whole train of thought goes, that things are just so darn sick. Where I can't, as a Beta Rock Church, marry anybody. I wrote that to a guy that I thought he was the best, youngest, theologically thinking guy that I had come across. He knew the Bible, fired it off. I mean, it was a video, so maybe I don't know. But then on Facebook, I could see what his fiance looked like, and I'm like, oh, she pretty. Maybe I'll say hello with a couple of words. And I haven't heard from him. Why? Because I could think in his church they do it right, or the fact that I believe in the 99% of churches across this country don't tell people what the truth is. We need to lean a lot harder into that. We need to put God first. And then let's talk. And I can't go back in time and reset the thing, but I can sure tell you the experience of what it's like, and just the base knowledge that sin brings a wage of death. Okay. And the thinking you can make a deal with the devil, or that sin doesn't have, there ain't no cooperation with sin. Bring a lot more fear into the picture. Just like King Lemuel in Proverbs 31 plainly says. So when we're going to churches that are led by pastors that are married, that have already made the same sinful devil deal compromises related to whatever, the fact that they're still married, or the fact that they're a pastor, doesn't mean that it doesn't conflict with what the Bible says. That's speculation. But what is true is that we do get married with these words, till death do us part. John Piper said that. Look, if we want to say what he said it. I mean, not that I couldn't think it, but then we need to change the vow. So are we going to tell the truth when we met Beta Rock? Are we going to tell the truth when we get married? Oh, you bet. So can we come up with a Beta Rock vow? I don't know. No, we got to have some members of Beta Rock Church before we can get into this. But I won't do it until I am comfortable blessing a marriage. I mean, really. And you see where I lean now, saying vow of chastity. Celibacy. That was the other word. I was like, oh, that's another word. So I Googled that, and one thing to say, I'm looking down my notes. One thing that the daytime talk show lady said that was what I thought was really good. This gets to what I was saying, because sexual addiction got rooted because of low self-esteem and compromises here. Yeah, sex is wonderful. I mean, it's my most favorite thing. Really. I've said, I like water skiing, I like baseball, but there's no comparison to sex. That's fine. You're hearing it straight. Sorry. But this daytime talk show lady was saying, it was just a bit of truth and a bunch of stuff that really wasn't deeply biblically true. But she said, by holding out meant that you're going to have to wait for my worthiness. She says, I'm worthy. And I'm like, that's true. And one of these pretty people that I interact with a little bit, I see it in this person. It's like, I don't know anything about her other than that she's super pretty. Much of anything. But I do see Facebook things, and it says this, that, and the other, that makes me think, see, this person's experience is the same reality. That there's something here where I'm just better than this. I'm better than getting into a relationship, that I'm better than this. Well, looking at her, I agree. I'm just saying. But even to her thing, some of the things that she was saying to even build up to this, like, I had to, I'm taking care of myself, and that nobody's going to take care of me. It just demonstrated a lot of brokenness that was getting sorted out. And God help me that I can talk through something talk this out where I don't have to think that I could interact with a Mary Magdalene, beautiful person, and really put it out there and really sort this down scientifically, like, okay. And the fact that we might be attracted, or see, this is where it gets all kind of squishy. But who cares? It's still secondary. That's my thinking, and really where this idea of this is a better way. So instead of saying that we have certain needs, I'm defining one of the wellness needs as being social, not sexual. So we can be friends. And the truth is, I mean, who knows what comes out of my mouth. But on this thing here, and this doesn't mean, who knows what you think about me or whatever, but this one guy said, I wrote him something about this, and then he wrote back, I wish you success in all your endeavors. Can I introduce you to my sister? She is loyal and respectful. I mean, and I wrote, I'm happy to meet your sister. Now, that was after like a good bit of thought, because I'm like, are you going this direction of wanting me? Look, it's P.S. I'm celibate, but I didn't say that. I just said, you know what? Whatever he's thinking doesn't change the fact that I can be social with this person. Do I think she's pretty or whatever? I don't even know what she looks like. I mean, I got concerned about that arena, but forgetting that. See what I'm saying? With the vow of celibacy, the relationship becomes primary, and that's it. Social is good. Okay. I think this is good. I mean, capital G, God breathed good. Under the way that I would have thought before, I would not have responded, or I would have been thinking sexually. Here, it's just not putting it out. Okay. Then he responded and said, she's beautiful. Well, good starting line there, because that would be what I would be most interested in. Okay. If I didn't take a vow of celibacy and was sexually thinking and respectful, she believes in love, fidelity, and commitment. And then I wrote her back about, I don't want to assume, and this, that, and the other, and he didn't respond. I mean, I was telling him then essentially, like, this is not going to, if we're going to do this, I became a little more clear to where I thought this was going. I made an assumption. I mean, assumptions can make, they're not necessarily right, but I think I was right. He hasn't responded. I'm just saying, whatever the case is here, that you might say to yourself, this is why it's fun to be America's Next Pastor, because what I say here is just that, look, everybody is flailing. Everybody is flailing. Everybody is flailing in relationships. 50% divorce. Pastors that don't have the courage, the wherewithal, the backing. I mean, just some deep down problems. We need a voice of truth, of the light in a dark, dark situation. Where then, when you can be taught under beta rock process and thinking, which is as biblically based as God help me it can be, then a greater number of people can say, you know what, right, we're after being social. That is a real need. And not even a need, a based, you hear, I mean, even, but that's only just, you understand. I mean, I don't know if you understand, but this is the only thing that we need is Jesus. And in a based jail cell life, you got yourself and you got Jesus. And that is enough. From that platform, we have a particular strength that can bring us into anything. Okay. Matthew 6:33, though, prosperity preaching is in the Bible, just not primary. All this needs to be understood. So this lovely guy here and his lovely sister, what we can agree about then is that we're social with each other. Okay? I think it's something that needs to be preached, because this brings an awareness, because we're so muddled up, we don't even know how to do this other than to have some kind of a romantic idea to it. That feels like exactly the truth. Not though to shy away with Jesus as the best example with the Mary Magdalene. You could replay that. I just love how that came out, because beauty is a thing. Beauty is real. Beauty is affirmed in the Bible. It's not bad to be beautiful. It's a blessing. It's a gift. It is good. Dangerous? What are the words? Anything. Anything in life. Everything's got to fall under the thing of fall under. That's the best way. Again, is are you ready to take a step of lordship and a full surrender? That's what I want to see from it. I'll enjoy. That's why with these beautiful people, the ones where this message of sexuality can make the most difference in the world. My name is Beta Rock, and together we can change the world in terms of sexualness or sexuality and all this. I definitely want, okay, beautiful people to speak into this because that support can be the most meaningful. That's what I believe and think. I don't want ugly nuns telling the message. One of the nuns that was in the show was half pretty, and I thought this, that, and this, but that just kind of gets at it. And she actually talked a little more true to some of the scenarios about finding a handsome man or whatever. It's one thing to say the truth, it's one thing to do the truth, and it's just there's dynamics. But to be beautiful just sets it all to the perfection that people can say, that's it. That's why One Tree Hill was such a meaningful show to me. Beautiful people, and it's a show. I don't want it to be a show. I want it to be under Beta Rock and real, genuine, where people see it and believe it, and it is the truth. We live out the truth as God intended it to be. Looking back at my notes, I'm reading. Should I read it out loud? Instead of shifting to the way of the world, trust God, leave the consequences to Him. This is where I'm at. I'm seeing better paths here. What does this look like? I talked about Martin Luther. As America's next pastor, I need to be the light in a dark world. Be the a light in a dark world. Jesus is the light. I'm not the light, and to the extent that I reflect what He wants and says. But to lead, to say what no one is saying. It's awkward, and I think I've done it pretty darn good. Thank you very much. Takes a courage, it's a dynamic, and I just think of what it might make or people that, and I just have to set that aside. Okay, I'm just into this to death for the rest of my life. I'm proud of that, I guess, but it doesn't mean that I'm ignorant, whatever. Like, I care about earthly things. Jesus didn't get married. All right, let's do some scriptures because these are good. 28 Bible verses about chastity. We can rattle these off and we'll be done before the hour's up. If my computer works. There we go. We're not going to read all these. I already read through these. Why is this running so slow? This is annoying. Come on now, cooperate with me. Matthew 15:19. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications. Acts 15:20. But that we write to them that they abstain from things contaminated by idols and from fornication. Fornication is sex between unmarried people. Even that, like I had become convinced that it was okay. I mean, this is just right there as plain as day. Having sex and not being married is in the Bible as wrong. Fornication. 1 Corinthians 10:8, nor let us act immorally. Revelation 2:14, but I have a few things against you, because you have there some who hold the teaching of Balaam, who kept teaching Balak to put a stumbling block, blah blah, to eat things sacrificed to idols, and to commit acts of immorality. Romans 13:13, let us behave properly as in the day, not in carousing and drunkenness, nor in sexual promiscuity. Acts 15:19-20, therefore it is my judgment that we do not trouble those who are turning to God from among the Gentiles, but that we write to them that they abstain from things contaminated by idols and from fornication. 1 Corinthians 6:18, flee immorality. Every other sin that a man commits is outside his body, but the immoral man sins against his own body. The happy ending to this, the way through this, to the wholeness, social, okay? Social is safe. Social is good. First Corinthians 5:9-11. I wrote you in my letter not to associate with immoral people. I wrote to you not to associate with any so-called brother if he is an immoral person. See where church discipline plays in here? Do we have the courage? We need to do, that's why Beta Rock Church is here. We got to deal with this. If you give people boundaries, then they'll follow them or face the consequences. But when you don't have a boundary, then they think it's fine to sin, me included. And that showed me, you know what? God is smarter than this. And it made me mad beyond anything else to be seeing that pastors were sinning in this, because it hurt me. It ain't no fun to discipline, fine. But then to see the hypocrisy in it, have some courage, do what's right. Beta Rock Church is intended to be 32 million big. 10% of the U.S. population. That's a number, okay? And I was doing population thoughts today, and really my relationships now are with people that aren't even in America. I mean, but in terms of numbers, it's not like this is some kind of a secret society or whatever of how we're just going to make a, what do you call that, a communal life with a small little group of people that think weird. I mean, no, we're trusting God for fruit here. And social is the way. Social is good. So when we criticize, it's not just condemning to the point of that shame. I mean, it's just an interrelated thing. No, there's a way to stand up and say social is good. Psalm 51, there's a happy one. Create in me a clean heart and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Psalm 119, how can a young man keep his way pure? By keeping it according to your word. First Corinthians 7:9, but if they do not have self-control, let them marry. So that's one of these passages. Like, we're just like acknowledging we don't have self-control. Maybe we need to spend like 99 weeks talking about having self-control and then tell them the part about marriage. I mean, but again, it's preached by pastors that are already married, that have already compromised here. When we think about relating to God in terms of our heart and not our brain, Are you ready to take a step of lordship and a full surrender? That's the terrain to make decisions like this on. And how to get there, it just ain't being done right as it presently is. Beta Rock Church is better than your church. Write me a note and explain why it's not. Leviticus. I'm not claiming this is present truth, but if there is a man who commits adultery with another man's wife, one who commits adultery with his friend's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. 10 Commandment, Exodus 20:14, you shall not commit adultery. Deuteronomy 5, same thing, different place. 10 Commandment, you shall not commit adultery, shall not commit adultery. Matthew 5:27-28. Here's one that's good too, and I have different perspectives on that now. With the vow of chastity, I can do this. Have you heard that he said you should not commit adultery? But I say to you that anyone who looks at a woman with lust in her has already committed adultery with him in his heart. I'm only telling you that whatever, it took that firm line of just being done. I'm just not doing this. That lets me do that because I'm just believing from the teaching and experience that I had. It's not every man's battle, but it can be in the culture that we're in where we've allowed it in there. Like we don't believe this passage here because we're so corrupted. Let's clean up. That's it. That's the passages that came up about chastity. So we're going to be done. This computer needs rebooted. For me personally, is that safe to say? For any topic that the Lord, and giving the Lord my all, my strength, my all, my spirit, open the eyes of my heart, all to Jesus I surrender. That is truly base. God willing, I believe it and want it, and that is the base, okay, to what is altogether right and good. The topic then, for me personally, that matters to me the most in terms of, say, everything else is fluff, okay, compared to the primary place of having Jesus as Lord, is this topic. I would love, like my tattoo says, 50% to 20%. Change divorce in America from 50 to 20%. I have it tattooed on my arm. To have a conversation, to bring it into the mainline way of thinking. All the way down, just comes to mind now, even back in the days of high school and dating, to have this be the preached idea. You can be close to the opposite sex socially, and we're going to emphasize that healthy path. Attraction is fine. What it really is going to have to take to change things from 50 to 20%. My name is Beta Rock, and together we can change the world. Help us, God, as a prayer. Help Beta Rock Church here to get people to get into this and think like I think, and to start doing things from a worldwide, high level, better than local church, bigger perspective, bigger changes. Divorce, celibacy, sex, lust, being one way where brokenness is ever so present. May somebody take a step of lordship and full surrender and start this conversation with me. Okay? In Jesus' name, amen.